That opinion say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Licensing Hours Extensions Bill, second reading.
Mrs. Emma Lewell-Buck.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that the bill now be read a second time. Those who don't know in this chamber what my constituents know already is that I love the pub, and especially the ones we have in South Shields. My locals, the Marine, the Harbour Lights, the Criterion, the Steamboat, the Alum Ale House, the New Sundial, the Riverside, the Grotto and the Stag's Head are all not just places where people go to drink, but where we come to meet our neighbours, our friends, our family, work colleagues, to celebrate important events, or just to sit and relax with a nice cold one. I, of course, will give way.
For giving way. I mean, it sounds like she's incredibly busy with so many locals to get around as well. Obviously, we are going through dry January at the moment, which is a fantastic opportunity for people to have a reflection on their relationship with alcohol, but that doesn't necessarily mean they don't go to the pub. There are obviously a range of low and no alcoholic beverages out there. So will she join me in paying tribute to all those who put the work into those products, but also saying that you can go to the pub, you can still socialise whilst being responsible?
Thank my honourable friend for that intervention. I couldn't agree more. My own mum is a teetotaler, yet she often comes to the pub and spends time with family and friends because it's part of the community. As my honourable friend for West Ham, who has now had to leave the chamber, reminded me earlier, my love of our local pubs is strong, and it's strong across all of our constituencies. There is one thing that generally unites us all across this country, and it's sporting or royal events. And the place we all tend to gather to do so is our local pub, because it's the beating heart of our communities. But as the House will know, these events don't always take place at the same time as our pubs and hospitality venues are open. That is why, in 2003, the Labour Government's Licensing Act made provision for licence exceptions. At present, an application for extension would be done by individual licensed premises applying for a temporary event notice. These TENs need to be applied for by individual premises to their local authority. Each application costs them £21, and it can take up to 5 working days as a minimum to be approved or not. A premise is only allowed to apply for between 2 and 10 short notice TENs in any given year. My bill will in no way alter TENs, but my bill does, however, intend to alter the other option for licensing extensions, which is for the Government to make an order under Section 172 of the Act applicable to all premises in England and Wales, specifying the dates and times of the relaxations and not exceeding 4 days. Such orders are subject to the affirmative procedure, meaning they need approval of both Houses of Parliament. Best practice is for the Home Secretary to complete a public consultation and Parliament for then to debate the order in both Houses. This full process can take up to 6 months to implement. In practice, these orders have never been opposed and have only been used for important events, such as the coronation of His Majesty the King, Her late Majesty the Queen's 90th birthday and her Platinum Jubilee, the 2011 and 2018 Royal Weddings, the 2014 FIFA World Cup and the Euro 2020 final, which happened eventually in 2021 due to the pandemic. Last summer, we were all so proud, and we remain proud, of our Lionesses reaching the Women's World Cup final. At last, we hoped it was coming home and that it would be the women bringing it. As members, we recall we only knew they had made the final on Wednesday. The final was on the Sunday in Sydney with an 11-hour time difference. The match kicked off at 11 a.m. with many pubs just opening their doors, meaning spectators missed out on all that pre-match excitement, and venues lost out on the extra revenue. There was no time for our pubs to apply for an extension to their local authorities, and because Parliament was in recess, there was no mechanism for the government to issue a blanket extension. The Beer and Pub Association previously predicted that over the course of one game, pubgoers can buy up to 6.8 million pints. But had those licensing laws not been relaxed, pubs would have sold an estimated 1.7 million fewer pints, costing them over 6 million in lost revenue. Under my bill, this would change. It would change the overly bureaucratic, costly and time-consuming process we have for blanket registrations now. My bill would bring an amendment to Section 197 of the Act so that future orders for relaxations of licensing hours would instead be subject to the negative resolution procedure. This would give the Home Secretary and Ministers the power to legislate without the long parliamentary approval process. This is not to say that consultation or forward planning will be dispensed with. The Government would need to continue to plan for such exceptional events far in advance, and the relevant bodies such as the police, venues, licensing authorities and members of the public and those who live near those licensed premises and trade associations would still be consulted. Of course I'll give way.
Thank her for giving way. I just want to put on record my thanks for her extremely common sense bill, and I know her pubs which she celebrated in the Black Country, in Wolverhampton and Willenhall, all around our fabulous region. Our pubs are that lifeblood of the community, and the speech she's giving, I just want to pass on the gratitude from my fantastic pubs and my constituents indeed. This is common sense, and our pubs, it is so important we can come together for these big national events. So I know she will have broad support across the chamber for this very common sense bill.
Thank the Honourable Member for that intervention, and I think I've never been to any of the pubs in the Honourable Member's patch, so if that's taken as an invitation, I will join you at some point. Thank you. Going back to the consultation, there is currently a consultation open on extending the licensing hours for the semi-final and final of the UEFA Euro 2024 if England, Wales or Scotland are playing. Of course.
I will thank for giving way. I mean, I'm more than happy to extend an invite to any of the pubs in Redcliffe, Whitefield and Prestwich as well, although I get the feeling she'll become an incredibly busy member at this rate. Maybe not that healthy either. But in regards to all these events, obviously we do have the World Cup in the USA in 2026 with one eye on, and obviously whilst we hope we will be bringing it home then, there are so many events taking place in the US on a regular occurrence, whether it's for tennis or even WrestleMania or the Super Bowl, where people will be wanting to view those as well. So would the bill extend as far as those?
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention, for the invite, and of course, if this bill passes, then it would apply to those as well. Members would also obtain the right to object. However, this has not happened in the past and it is unlikely to happen in the future. Now, it's not often I would be happy proposing that a Conservative Secretary of State had more powers, but these powers would not only ensure that we can come together in our local for special events, but it will also give a much-needed boost to our hospitality industry. Of course.
And it's the point that she's just made, which I find, I think is extremely significant, because the Section 172 is referring to exceptional, international, national, or local significance. Now, I truly hope there is a South Shields Day, or I'm sure that the great events happen throughout the year in South Shields. Would this process be able and an easier way for local areas to celebrate things that would be specific to that locality, whether it's Bury, South Shields or wherever else it may be? Or are we still talking about big events such as the World Cup, etc., etc.?
Thank the Honourable Member for that intervention. It would apply to local events as well. Each one would be at the discretion of the Home Secretary in consultation with all the relevant authorities. And in South Shields, I hope we do use this because we love a good party in South Shields and we love coming together to celebrate. Our hospitality industry struggled in the pandemic. In 2020, it's estimated they lost a total of £200 million every single day. This is an industry that has over 220,000 premises licensed to sell alcohol in England and Wales. It employs around 500,000 people in pubs and bars across our towns and communities. Across the UK in general, it contributes £14.3 billion in wages, £26.2 billion to the national economy, £15 billion in tax revenues, and £2 billion net capital expenditure. As well as that, there is a strong domestic supply chain where over 80% of beer sold in the UK is produced here in the UK. It's very clear that what benefits our pubs benefits all of us. We should never underestimate their contribution or how hard those in the industry work. And Mr Deputy Speaker, I probably know this more than most others in this place. I get the love of the pub from my mum and dad. My dad, who always knows a good pint when he sees one, and my mum, who was a well-respected and brilliant barmaid. It should come as no surprise that I followed in her footsteps and ended up working in many pubs and hospitality venues myself. In my younger and more glamorous days, I was even a promotions girl for our very famous Tuxedo Royale nightclub in Newcastle with its legendary revolving dance floor. When I was a local councillor, I chaired our licensing committee and gained my Level 2 BIIAB personal licence. In honour of Her late Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, I created, mixed and served cocktails in my constituency at my friend's popular cafe and bar, Sea Change. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's clear I am familiar with and happy at both sides of the bar, and I am in no doubt the value that this industry brings, not just to my constituency, but to our economy and our country overall. This is a really simple, impactful bill. The pub is a great British institution. It is right that they are able to welcome us through their doors for events of national and local significance. Under my bill, they will now be able to, and I remain hopeful that the Minister agrees wholeheartedly with me.
Will the bill be now read a second time? Dr. Thérèse Coffey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And it's a pleasure to speak on this bill, and I congratulate the honourable member on bringing this forward. Indeed, the wisdom of doing so, I'm sure, will make her the toast of many a pub around the country. In terms of this bill, the reason why it's so helpful is recognising the flexibility of making this change from going from affirmative statutory instrument with all the requirements that go with that into a negative allows that flexibility, so that the government of the day can respond to public demand, particularly thinking of special occasions. Now, quite rightly, the legislation of the original 2003 Act does not specifically say what is a special occasion, so there can be aspects of flexibility, and indeed points to the fact that it should not be treated as a hybrid instrument. So that's why I was quite interested in Section 1C of the bill being proposed to omit subsection 5, which basically rules out any possible objections to the SI in case it was deemed to be hybrid, that it would absolutely not by legislation be considered not to be hybrid. So I just want to make sure that the Minister is happy that this won't trip up any future negative SIs in the future. In terms of the Honourable Lady's already talked about some of the extensive celebrations. We know that consultation is only required where appropriate, and I think that's also the right balance to have when you're talking about much more local situation. That would be, especially if an event perhaps was on at 3 or 4 in the morning, instead of perhaps just extending a little bit longer, then that I think would be appropriate. But what I do hope, and what I hope the Honourable Member for South Shields is proud of, is that actually the very deregulatory approach of this bill is something that I would welcome for the future, especially when we're considering all sorts of legislation in that regard. The intention is to reduce bureaucracy. That's why about 80% of the secondary legislation that we do is through the negative resolution, and we need to continue that. There's often a clamour in this House, and particularly in the other House, to try and get everything on the affirmative. It is appropriate Of course, that's why the route exists, but it's also appropriate to consider the practicalities of how legislation gets enforced. I have to say, I'm looking forward to when this will be law. I'm sure that many of the pubs in my constituency, indeed other outlets that require licensing hour adjustments, will welcome that, and long may we make sure we get to the next World Cup finals so that we can take full advantage of this legislation. Thank you.
Sir Oliver Hill.
Not in this.
Which was standing. James Daly.
Thank you very much, Sir Roger. Can I say, Sir Roger, I don't think I've ever agreed with a bill as much in my life as I've agreed with this one. Literally, there is no word in it that I disagree with. But I actually think that the honourable member actually downplays the significance of this, which has been amplified, I think, by my honourable friend. Because when one looks, we talked earlier on about how politics affects and impacts people's lives. And I'm a politician who believes that politics starts at the moment where you walk out of your front door, and the things that impact you most are the things that you see all around you. And one of the things that makes politics work is community. For community work to work, there have to be events and things that bring people together to share a communal experience. And one of the ways of doing that is whether it is the Ramsbottom Black Pudding Festival in my constituency, whether it's all the wonderful things that happen in South Shields, whether it's the many, many festivals in Norfolk, Suffolk and Hertfordshire. We need a more streamlined process that allows hospitality businesses to benefit from events that bring people to one place to celebrate whatever it is that they're celebrating. And I think that councils have a part to play in this. We should be much more flexible in terms of how we use licensing within the, obviously consulting the police and all the other things that matter in respect of this to support the hospitality industry. One of the problems for the hospitality industry at this moment in time is basically bums on seats. It's getting people to be in a place, to actually get them through the door. They face challenges from supermarkets in terms of cheaper alcohol, energy costs, all sorts of other things. I'm sure the Minister may have time to roll through the various measures that the Conservative government have done to support hospitality. But at the be-all and end-all, this Parliament should be an enabler, and it should be an enabler to allow businesses through their endeavour, through their hard work, to be able to thrive and succeed. And I think that is exactly what this bill does. And the reason why I asked the question to start off with is this should not just be seen, in my view, as a amendment or a bill that simply is about big national events. It should be allowing and should be known to MPs, to councils, to individuals, to community groups, to the hospitality sector as a way to allow licensing on a large scale to benefit local, national and regional economies and to keep our pub sectors going. The pub sector is going through an unmitigated challenge, especially those who are leasehold, and they need all the help that they can get, and this bill plays its small part in doing that, so the member should be congratulated for that.
Nicola Richards.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's a pleasure to speak in this debate, and I thank the Honourable Member for South Shields for bringing this bill before us today, and great to hear about her cocktail making too. There are not many things that the British public find more enjoyable than going to the pub and having a pint. Our pubs are a vital part of both the local economy and community, and they bring so many people together. This is especially the case when it comes to celebrating those big special occasions in our nation, most notably His Majesty's coronation last May and the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee, as well as the 2020 Euro final. On all of these occasions, the Secretary of State has to use the powers under the Licensing Act 2003 to make an order for the relaxation of licensing hours so that pubs can stay open longer. However, it makes no sense at all that in order for this to be possible under the current unamended Act, the order has to be approved by this House and the other place, and the Home Secretary must also consult those who they deem as appropriate to. The most recent of these consultations had a very low response rate, which doesn't match the high proportion of people in the British public who back us changing these licensing hours. There's also concern sometimes that the extension on licensing hours can lead to a rise in disorder, but there is little to no evidence to support that that is the case. It seems to me only right that we should have the ability to celebrate these important occasions in our pubs for longer than would normally be permitted, and it's the perfect way to express our pride in our country and celebrate all the special occasions with our communities. We are a patriotic nation, and we should be proud to mark these achievements together. Mr Deputy Speaker, our time in this place is of course valuable and important. By passing this bill, we'll be removing what has become an administrative procedure of approving the measure under the current Act. Instead, we'll be able to pass the order more quickly, reducing the amount of parliamentary time currently required and responding to events in a much more effective manner. Here's hoping that we soon are able to celebrate more football finals so we can put this new procedure to the test. I believe that the Honourable Lady's Bill does include appropriate safeguards with the ability to retain for any member of this House to request a consultation if they so desired. It's also the case that the bill maintains the need for specific dates and times for the extension of the hours to be specified, and so it does not give the green light to this happening on an increased basis, but simply means that when an appropriate time comes, we're able to make it easier to extend licensing hours. I know that I speak for many colleagues across the House when I say that I have such great memories of times I spent with others in pubs across my constituency and the wider region. As a member of the APPG on beer, I'm never shy to say yes to a drink and support our fabulous breweries up and down the country. This bill has many benefits, cutting bureaucracy and making it easier for the nation to celebrate great successes. So can I thank the Honourable Member once again for bringing this bill here today.
Opposition front bench, Feryal Club.
Thank you, Sir Roger. I want to start by paying tribute to my friend, the Honourable Member for South Shields, for bringing this important bill before the House today, and on her successful for being successful in the ballots. So, Roger, I also want to pay tribute to the members for Bury North, Suffolk Coastal and West Bromwich who've just spoken in the debate. As we have heard, this bill would amend Section 197 of the Licensing Hours Extensions Bill, granting our hospitality sector more freedom to extend their licensing hours with shorter notice, creating a simplified parliamentary process and enabling a swifter response to the relaxation requests. It would allow our communities to celebrate events of national significance in hospitality venues for longer, providing a welcome boost to businesses and fans. Currently, Sir Roger, under Section 197 of the Act, Parliament must approve the relaxation order in both houses, and best practice is to complete a full public consultation. This can take significant amounts of time. Last year, as it has been highlighted, the issue when our Lionesses progressed to England's first cup final since 1966, as expected, requests came in to extend licensing hours late and during parliamentary recess, making it impossible to grant the request through Parliament. This denied many businesses the opportunity to serve customers early and supporters to get behind our team. Pubs, bars and restaurants could open from 10 a.m. for the Women's World Cup final, but could not serve until 11 a.m. Early opening and serving service would not only have provided a fitting boost for the Lionesses, but also the hospitality industry, which has suffered so much over the last few years. The industry has suffered a toxic cocktail of rising energy costs, recruitment issues, costs of living, the pandemic and inflationary pressures, among others. Therefore, now more than ever, the sector needs a boost. As we all know, sporting events can have a significant impact on the hospitality industry and our communities, as has been said by various members. The World Cup final last year was expected to bring a £41 million boost to the industry, alongside an extra 1 million people in pubs, bars and restaurants. Our hospitality sector brings a huge boost to the UK economy, generating 54 billion in tax receipts, alongside 7 billion of business investments in 2022. As we all know how important our pubs and restaurants are to our communities, but the impact goes much further. A staggering 42% of tourists want to visit a pub when visiting the UK. So our hospitality sector is not just something to shout out about here at home, but also abroad. I know many in this House today will share this view. We are currently denying pubs, bars and restaurants the full opportunity to benefit from this. It is clearly an opportunity missed, one that hopefully will not be missed again with the progression of this bill. This summer, Sir Roger, we have more fantastic sporting events. We have the Olympics and Paralympics. We have the Tour de France. And in 2028, our country will be hosting the Euros. Therefore, with so much sport on offer, it is not difficult to imagine a similar set of circumstances reoccurring in the coming years. So I'm very pleased with the relevant safeguards in place with this bill, as has been mentioned by the member for South Shields. For example, the option for consultation will be retained, enabling decisions to be taken once potential concerns, for example, noise and antisocial behaviour, have been considered. Also, the negative resolution procedure would also allow the order to be debated if successfully requested by any parliamentarian and with support from across the House, as well as the hospitality industry. With that, Sir Roger, this bill should progress, and I'm very pleased to be supporting it today. Thank you.
Minister. Laura Farris.
Thank you, Sir Roger. May I begin by congratulating the Honourable Member for South Shields for her success in the ballot and for bringing this very worthwhile private member's bill. I'd like to begin by confirming that she has the full support of the government. We will do all that we can to accelerate its progress through the other place. And I should add, I think if and hopefully when it receives royal assent, I think we should take a parliamentary trip, parliamentary trip to the revolving dance floors of the club in South Shields that she used to promote back in the day. As the Honourable Lady has set out, the Licensing Act 2003 does already make provision for the Secretary of State to make an order which relaxes licensing hours for an occasion of exceptional international, national or local significance. The effect of her private member's bill does not result in any proposed change to the frequency with which this discretion may be exercised. And in fact, it has only been used relatively sparingly on a case-by-case basis in the last decade. She gave the example of the King's coronation, Her late Majesty's 2 last Jubilees, the Diamond and Platinum Jubilees, the Royal Weddings, the FIFA World Cup and more recently the European Final. The benefits include, of course, supporting communities to come together to celebrate these important events, supporting businesses by enabling them to stay open for longer and increase revenues, and ensuring that licensing authorities do not have the burden of processing numerous individual requests for extension. This bill proposes to amend the Act so that these orders are subject to the negative resolution procedure rather than the affirmative procedure. Where the government has previously extended licensing hours on those rare occasions, those plans have always received cross-party support in both houses and have passed unopposed. So this bill results in the additional benefit of enabling extensions to be implemented at short notice if necessary, including when Parliament is in recess. Current arrangements mean that fast-paced extensions are simply not always possible, which was particularly problematic when the Lionesses reached the final in Australia last year. This bill rectifies this issue and ensures that licensing hours can be extended at short notice where necessary. Having said this, let me be clear that the government fully intends to continue to plan ahead so that wherever possible, licensing hour extension orders can be brought forward with sufficient time for public consultation and notice. I'd like to once again thank the Honourable Lady for bringing forward this legislation, and to everybody who's spoken in support, the member for West Bromwich East, the member for Bury North and the member for Suffolk Coastal. It is a simple measure. It will free up parliamentary time and it will help the government to continue to support our treasured local pubs.
House, Lewell-Buck to wind up the debate.
With the leave of the House, I would like to thank all right honourable and honourable members for their wholehearted support. I am looking very much forward to my pub constituency tour, but I would have to say to the Minister, sadly, the revolving dance floor, a bit like me, got old and tired and is no more. I would also like to urge some caution in, I think, the comments made by the Right Honourable Member for Suffolk Coastal. I am not now suddenly a fan of mass deregulation. I think it should always be considered on a case-by-case basis. I have many more people to thank. On the government benches, of course, the Minister and the Honourable Member for Castlepoint. Home Office officials, the Public Bill Office, Rebecca Natton, my invaluable senior researcher, as well as the British Beer and Pub Association, the Nighttime Industries Association, along with their chair and hospitality champion, Sasha Lord, and of course, my honourable friend on our front bench. But most of all, I want to thank all of those who work in our hospitality industry, because without them, without their hard work and contribution, our communities and local economies would not be what they are today. So I finally would just like to say cheers to the government for supporting my bill, and in commending it to the House, I will add I definitely owe the Minister, among many more people, a good drink. Thank you.
Question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Contrary no? The ayes have it.
Children in hospital for extended periods.